All right, we're back here. Wednesday, TRE. This is our Good Morning Austin show presented by BOA Technologies. A big thank you to BOA for their support of our programming here this week. And joining me now, Mr. Vince Mazzuca from Osprey. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty well done.
Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me. Doing well.
So you're the director of marketing at Osprey. Yeah. I looked at your LinkedIn. It looks like you've been there for a long time now, 8 years.
8 years, yeah.
Tell us about your history with the brand, what brought you to it, and what you do practically day to day.
Yeah, so I'm director of marketing. I've been there a little over 8 years. It's literally the longest I've ever lived in one spot my entire life. We grew up moving around a bunch, and oddly enough, Memphis, Colorado is the place I've lived longer than anywhere. But so I came to Osprey. I've about 15 years experience now in the industry, in the outdoor industry. Started in at Yakima Racks and kind of East Coast tech rep, Florida to Maine, as far west as Chicago, traveling for 8 to 9 months out of the year. And then kind of worked my way around. I was in Bend for a little bit at Roughwear, and when I got the call about a position at Osprey, I jumped. I had actually interviewed at Osprey probably 3 years prior to that for a different role, and was just had a friend through the Conservation Alliance who we've been working with member companies with for a long time, who's a recruiter, and called me and said, "Hey, there's something at Osprey, you should check it out." We jumped immediately. I mean, it was like obviously I had to like interview and get the job, but that was like, it was a no-brainer. And for me, it was just because of in the outdoor industry, especially the legacy that Osprey holds, the reputation it holds, both for the product and the type of brand it is. And so it was a no-brainer to jump on the opportunity, and have been there since.
So we'll come back to the brand in a second, but you just mentioned your experience being a tech rep for the whole East Coast, Florida to Maine, as far west as Chicago. That feels to me like a formative time probably in any career. Yeah. I'd love to hear how that's influenced being, a traveling sales rep. Yeah. How that's sort of translated, what skills you developed that have translated to this role at Osprey.
That's an awesome question. I'm extremely grateful that was my entry point into the industry. It's not like a normal entry point. But I was fortunate that someone was willing to take a risk on this guy I didn't know on the East Coast and put him in a car and send him on the road. And that guy actually who hired me, Joel Grabenstein, he's still a mentor and a friend to this day. But the reason I think I go back to just being grateful for that experience is, basically like it was like you learn immediately so much that like you see much more than you ever would if you're just, in-house. I think that the typical entry point in an industry is, a lot of people will get in customer service and dealer service and then kind of move throughout the ranks in different companies. For me to get to spend, like I said, 8 months of the year on the road, visiting dealers, clinicking shops, doing merchandising, hearing straight from retail, the retail employees, what's going on and what's happening. And then that's Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, working bike races, events, kayak events, anything and everything, music festivals. So that connection to the actual end user and consumer, like just understanding the importance of boots on the ground, I think is what I take into it now, and trying to tell, my folks, like we don't get much done in the office, right? Like we have a million meetings, but we don't learn anything. And so it's a little tough for us at Osprey because we're in Cortez, so we're pretty far out there. But anytime possible, we try to get people out to actually connect with people. And for me, field marketing and just grassroots boots on the ground is like, that's the best way to learn. It opens everybody's eyes.
What a great answer. I'm so glad I asked that question. Nice. So cool. It makes perfect sense. So coming back to Memphis/Cortez, Colorado, where Osprey is based, give the listeners a sense of place, how the brand ended up there, and a little bit of the history.
Yeah. I'll try and do it pretty in a short way. I think I'd encourage anyone to go listen to Mike the founder of Osprey was on How I Built This on NPR, and I would
one of the great episodes, certainly the last couple of years.
It's a great listen, and it kind of helped remind me a bit of the story. But Osprey was founded in Santa Cruz, California in 1974, which means we're just a couple months away from a big 50th celebration, which is pretty exciting. But in, the way that Mike tells the story, Mike and Diane, they say that if you're, in Santa Cruz in the late 70s, early 80s, as they were kind of getting this thing going and growing the business, if the surf was up or the dead was in town, no one showed up to work. And so I think that's the fun excuse. I think it's an expensive place to run a business and trying to grow at scale. I want to see this DVD, or actually it wasn't a DVD, it was a VHS tape back then that was called Discovered Dolores. And Dolores is a town about 12 miles north of Cortez, small river town. And they, for some reason, something on that tape kind of said, we need to go check it out. So they came down to Dolores. This was in the late 80s. And it just so happened that there's a white building, it's still there, but there was a subcontracted factory for Gore-Tex. So very well-trained staff of sewers, predominantly Native American sewers. And they were closing like that day or that week or something like that. And so for them, it was like, wow, turnkey building. It's set up for cut and sew operation. There's a staff here losing their jobs who we can just, employ. And so they pretty much up and moved right away and moved to Dolores, probably not knowing what they were getting into. But they, and it's hard to summarize all this in a really short little sentence, but the sense of Southwest Colorado is largely what made Osprey what it is. I love Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is a great place. I don't know if Osprey would still be what it is if it stayed there. And I think that part of that comes from, frankly, Mike and Diane's love for the region. They're still in the region. They sold the business 2 years ago and they're not leaving.
It's so remote. I mean, for the viewing audience, the fact that this brand exists in Dolores, Cortez. I mean, I'm from Colorado myself. This is the deep southwest corner of the state. It's, in the late 80s, the closest real town is Durango. That was probably not really a town in the late 80s in the way it is today. So it's very remote. What sort of impact has it had on the local community? Because I would assume that Osprey is still probably one of the bigger employers.
It is, it's us, and then like the schools and hospitals, and then extractive industries, Kinder Morgan, oil and gas, and what kind of impact has it had? I can tell you one thing that this is like a funny story that I think is a good anecdote that it displays. It's very much like we don't have a lot of resources, so if you want something done, oftentimes like you're just doing it, right? And we held this event in Denver last May, and we had hired this event group to help us do it. And we were setting up in this, art gallery until 2 or 3 in the morning. And there were like people from our team were just like grabbing circular saws and going to town. And they were like, we've never seen anyone just like grab a saw and go to town like this. I think we just learned if you need something done, you just do it, right? Because there's not a ton of resources. That said, the community is super supportive. And so I think, it is a tight community down there, and in that kind of Tri-Cities area of Cortez, Dolores, and Mancos and Durango. And so I think that's something that's made it special. We don't have the same, from a talent retention or recruitment standpoint, we don't have the same type of, draw that a city would from a nightlife or additional resources. And childcare is frankly one of our biggest retention problems because there's not a lot of childcare there. But what we do have, and I always say when people are thinking about moving there, that it's not for everybody, but it's perfect for some. If you love outdoor access, it doesn't get any better. You go west and you're in Bears Ears, and you're in Bluff, and you're in Indian Creek, and you go east and you're in the San Juans. You can't beat it.
It is beautiful. Yeah. Well, thanks for entertaining me with that. It's I think one of the things that makes the brand unique. So sort of coming around to product and trail running. Obviously, our audience is very trail running focused, and Osprey has been a brand that I've noticed sort of slowly coming into the sport and getting more advanced with the products that you offer. As somebody who's used your backpacks a lot, your luggage a lot, now we use your child carrying backpack, the Polka, like almost every single day. Talk about the category and what it's meant to Osprey in your 8 years with the company and where it stands at this point.
Yeah. So we're on the trail running side. Osprey introduced, and this was kind of pre my time here. We introduced a pack called the Rev, and that was back in probably 2012, maybe 2013, and it was the initial attempt at like a vest style running pack, but being the traditional, like more kind of coming from the outdoor space. That pack was probably trying to do too much, trying to be a bit of a Swiss Army, like, hey, it's a run pack, but it's also a fast packing pack. It's also, you can take it mountain biking and you can take it multi-pitch climbing. I think for a while that pack was a great pack. I ran my first 50K in it in 2014 or whatever, but it was probably trying to do too many things. And as we've kind of grown our line over the years, we've been much more strategic in what categories are important to us. And as we look at, obviously when we started, it was backpacking and mountaineering, big, 50, 60, 70, up to 100 liter packs. And our specialty is understanding how to transfer a load that size to a body, leveraging like the full back and your iliac crest and your hip bones. You don't have that really to leverage with a vest, and it's a completely different type of fit. So it's honestly something that's taken longer to feel like narrowed, like dialed. And so going back, that was the initial attempt, was the Rev. Since then, in 2016, we launched the Duro and Dyna, which is our flagship running packs now. And that line's been expanding from everything from handhelds to different size belts to, very lightweight, kind of just like lunch run vest, to a full on like 15 liter, like Nolan's kind of unsupported attempt type of pack. Yeah. And, trail running as a category, it is important to us. And it's been a category that, like I said, we kind of dabbled back then. And as we've gotten more serious with the product line, we're definitely kind of more focused on making sure that we're seen as a trail running brand.
It's interesting what you said about that initial pack in 2014 and how it was almost too general, and how it feels like now everything needs to be very specific to a singular application, a single use case. What a great learning experience, especially, for a marketer, being the person who has to communicate with the marketplace and tell the story about the value proposition.
It's tough though, because we still definitely, the more specialized you make it to where okay, well, if you're going to go on a run for an hour, use this one. If you're going to go a run for 2 to 3 hours, use this one. The more you do that, the more you raise the barrier of entry for people, because all of a sudden, wait, I have to own 3 packs just to get into running. Right. So no matter what category you're going into, we still always say the best pack is the pack you have. Get out and go out and do it, or do something. But at the same time, you have people who want to push themselves in certain categories, and we do want to make sure they have the right product.
Sweet. So final couple questions here. We have a couple mutual friends in Tyler Green and Rachel Drake, who I know have been important athletes for the brand, representing Osprey on the international racing circuit. They both had fantastic seasons here in 2023. Talk about what they've meant to the brand and how they've contributed to the product development on the trail side.
They're the best. I mean, it's hard not to talk about them without getting kind of just warm. They're just such sweet, amazing humans. They have been incredibly important to us in developing our trail run, and will continue to. Our product team's working closely with them on more products that are exciting. And the thing I'd say, Osprey, we've never had massive sports marketing budgets, which is why you don't see us blowing up, and all of a sudden we're in, sponsoring a dozen races and, have an athlete team that's 15 people deep. we also support so many categories that it's hard for us to be able to, like, just from a budget perspective, frankly, to have 10 athletes in one category, because we also have climb athletes and ski athletes. And but anyways, going back to kind of Rachel and Tyler, the thing that is, for us, first and foremost, we want to get product to folks, and if it works for them, then we'll start talking after that. Rachel actually reached out to us. This was like shortly after I started with Osprey, maybe a year or so into it. And it was just kind of a random email. And she's like, hey, I'm going out to run in Europe, and I've used a pack of yours, and I'd love to kind of talk about working with you. And so we sent a couple more packs out. And that, I think for us, it's important that it starts off organic, and it was especially something that she already was using and liked and wanted to kind of approach a relationship. And then as we got to know Rachel, we got to know Tyler as well. And, obviously the two of them have just been flourishing and, in every way. And also I think the fun part about what we do is we, like you mentioned, the child carrier, right? They have a little one, and we're able to, that's great. Like, we are a family brand.
What a great product that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've been phenomenal to work with, and they're helping us. We are actually kind of working with them to find a couple more folks to bring into the family, and making sure we're working with them in a way that, like, who we bring in is going to help kind of be a symbiotic, like, really good just chemistry with a run group that we're building.
Really, really cool. We're running out of time, so final question for you. Anything that our viewers and listeners can expect coming down the pipeline from Osprey, especially in the trail running product space?
So in trail running, the Durodyna that I mentioned is our flagship line. There weren't no new changes to that for 2024, new colors, but no big design shifts. We just kind of went through a design shift on that, and we kind of typically will go 2 to 3 years on a technical product before a big shift. We are adding a new pack, leveraging the Talon and Tempest. Those are like our flagship kind of like light and fast peak bagging, multi-sport hiking kind of adventure race packs. We're adding one that's specific called the Talon Velocity and Tempest Velocity in 2 volumes. And they're kind of for that FKT seeker who is pushing kind of deeper and further into alpine terrain. So it's crossover of a running vest style harness with a 20 and a 30 liter, very like light, simple pack. So it's definitely more of your, again, going back to that kind of unsupported Nolans, and you need more gear or you're fast packing or something like that. So that's really what's new that kind of does have a crossover into the trail run space.
Amazing. Well, Vince, thanks so much for coming on the show. You're obviously the director of marketing at Osprey. You did a great job of communicating the brand to our viewing audience. And I loved what you said about the spirit of Dolores shining through in the Osprey products. I very much feel that now. As I think about that myself, I'm an admirer of what you guys do. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks.